Have you noticed that we're not hearing much about the Sermon on the Mount these days? Particularly, you won't be hearing it from some of the evangelical preachers and politicians, the folks who like to wave their Bible in the air, but whose personal behavior and whose social policies don't seem to indicate that they've really spent much time reading it. But then, after all, the Sermon on the Mount is tough going. I mean, it really doesn't matter where you are on the red to blue, conservative to progressive sort of continuum. When you actually start taking the Sermon on the Mount seriously, you're sure to find something there that will disrupt your assumptions, disturb your conscience, and call you to a radically different way of living. Virginia Stem Owens found that out. She assigned the Sermon on the Mount to a classroom of students at Texas A&M, most of whom had never read it before. And the responses were really fascinating. One student said, "It made me feel like I had to be perfect, and no one is." Another responded, "The things asked in that sermon are absurd." And they got it right. I mean, what could be more absurd? In a time like ours, deeply divided, powerfully polarized, confronting again the sin of racism that continues to infect our life together and divide us. What could be more absurd than this? You've heard that it was said, "You must love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who harass you, so that you will be acting like children of your Father who is in heaven. He makes the sun to rise both on the good and on the evil, and sends rain on both the just and the unjust. If you love only those who love you, then what reward have you? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, just as your heavenly Father is complete in showing love to everyone, so also you must be complete. Really, it's absurd in a world like ours. What do you do with that? Because when you read the gospel, it sounds like Jesus really expects his followers to behave that way. Dr. Donald English was the spiritual leader of British Methodism when I clearly remember hearing him say, "The world doesn't need any more salespersons for the gospel. What the world really needs are more free samples." Free samples. Every now and then you find one. Every now and then we see people who really take Jesus' words seriously, really believe that they're called to live in ways that at least attempt to express the Sermon on the Mount. No question about it. John Lewis was one of those. We watched as they carried his casket on a mule-drawn wagon back across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where he had been beaten nearly to death. We've been hearing again the stories of the way he courageously and faithfully continued to stand for that which was right and good. The morning after he died, the historian and Lewis biographer John Meacham, here's what he said about Lewis. John Lewis was a genuine saint, a human being willing to suffer and die for his understanding of the gospel and how that gospel found expression in America of the 20th and 21st centuries. Meacham summed up Lewis's life when he said, he was about the Beatitudes. For him, love was not an ideal, but love as a reality. He was in the streets because of Jesus of Nazareth. John Lewis leaves us with his own word of both promise and challenge. We will create the beloved community. We will redeem the soul of the nation. I still believe that we shall overcome. So, given the choices, wouldn't you rather be an imperfect disciple attempting to live toward the kind of perfect love that Jesus describes? Wouldn't you like to have someone look back on your life and say that you lived the Beatitudes? For you, love was a reality. May God grant us that kind of courage and that kind of love in our own way and in our own time. Thanks be to God.